Hello everyone, I'm really excited to continue the ESCALATE storytelling project with another amazing panel. These amazing individuals are doing game-changing, groundbreaking work to reduce and eliminate HIV-related stigma throughout the entire United States. So I'm really excited to have people that represent such diverse groups, but also diverse geographic representation. So today's conversation is going to center around the work that we're doing to end HIV-related stigma in the United States. So Morgan, just describe some of the work that you're doing in your community to eliminate HIV-related stigma.
I'm a licensed master social worker in the state of Alabama. I work as a medical social worker at Medical Advocacy and Outreach, which is a HIV service organization. We provide clinical, social, educational, outreach, kind of a full-scale sort of agency in the state. We cover the central and south part of the state, which includes a whole lot of rural space. We have mobile units that go out to these rural areas because they cannot get to us in the city of Montgomery. And a lot of these people come in, and when they are diagnosed, they only know that HIV is somehow bad. They have no idea what it is. So we move from there, and we get people engaged in care and help educate their families so that they can live with people who do support them and do know what's going on with them.
You know, in part one of our storytelling project, we talked about you equals you and how the messaging of you equals you is getting out. And for a lot of people living with HIV, it's empowering. But we also know the stigma looks different based on where you live. And we know that stigma in the South is so different than in other parts of the country. So Tori, you're also situated in the South, living in the South. How do you describe the work that you're doing to reduce and eliminate HIV stigma?
It's a big question. Thank you for the work that you all are doing in Montgomery, and thank you all for having me. I think of myself as a person, as an individual, as an advocate, some would say an activist, who speaks up for people who are not always in the room. You know, I navigate the world with a lot of privilege. And so I realized that I can use that privilege, not just for myself, but to advocate for people who are like me, and then, even more importantly, for people who are not like me. And so the we in that answer is also, I'm a part of an absolutely amazing and resilient community of trans individuals, trans and non-binary individuals, and then more specifically Black trans women who have fought for many, many years simply to be recognized by HIV care systems. And, only up until recently have been able to hold space amongst other folks, to have these types of conversations and to have our voices heard and to be included in research and in data set. I want to make it clear, it's still not up to par, it's still not enough, but there are folks who've been working tirelessly, certainly well before me and alongside me now, and folks who are still yet to come.
Charles, you're leading the Center to End the Epidemics. How do you describe the work that you're doing to combat stigma across the United States?
A lot of times when we have our trainings or we do these conferences, we run into so many people who feel disenfranchised or left behind or really worthless. And it's a lot of time because of HIV stigma, whether it be internalized stigma, something from system level, or even from peers. And a lot of times that leaves people in a space of worthlessness and helplessness. So really being able to pull people from that space and help build up their capacity to be advocates and to be leaders is really my passion and my way to make sure that we can help combat stigma and make sure that people who are experiencing stigma are able to reclaim that from them, from their experience and own it, and then make it into something more powerful and fruitful.
We need strong leadership to combat stigma. You know, we've talked about that in our ESCALATE presentation. A lot of our folks that have gone through training, they often talk about leadership, needing leadership buy-in, having leadership that understands stigma, that is working to fight against it. So thank you for helping to build the next wave of leaders that are gonna do the work to address stigma in a way that hasn't been done before. So thank you for your work to build leaders. Paulette, from Orange County, how are you working to end stigma in your community?
We need to keep talking about it. So for myself, I'm gay, but I've only been working with the HIV community for a year and a half. And so I've learned so much in that year and a half, but because it was not part of some, like I didn't know anyone that was open with their status. I'm sure that I've met many people that are HIV positive, but no one that, talked about it. So, but it's important to talk about it and break down those old school, I don't know if that's the correct way, old school ideas. And I get a lot of patients that they've been diagnosed that day. And so at that moment, their whole world is shattered. If they're emotional, then I do my best to, mother and, it's gonna be okay. We talk about U equals U. And I just really drive home that you can continue living a normal life, because there's that misconception that, you have HIV, it's a done deal, and it's not. That's not it.
So, Paulette, that really leads right into my second question, because I want to ask everyone, how does stigma impact the work you do? I know you talked about what you're doing to resist stigma, but stigma's not most of our work. Like, none of us have been hired. Well, I'm hired for ESCALATE, to manage ESCALATE, but most people aren't hired to do stigma reduction work. We do it as a part of the work. So my question is, how does it impact your ability to do the work?
So I'm going to say Black trans woman a lot, because in every space that I enter, particularly around healthcare and HIV and advocacy, I have to say that. It needs to be said that there are Black trans women holding space there. And I think most of my work is about stigma reduction, in part because trans people are really smart. We figure out how to navigate in a world that says that we're not worthy of living. And even in HIV care systems, I mentioned before that traditionally have not served trans people. And so no matter what I'm doing, if it's helping someone make the best decision for themselves, which is what we're all doing, so we are fighting stigma. In everything that we do, we don't think about it that way. Encouraging people to take antiretroviral therapy, which is making the best decisions for themselves, that's anti-stigma. And so we are continually fighting stigma simply by telling people what things are and what they aren't, and by making sure that they show up.
Charles, from your perspective, how has stigma impacted the work that you're doing?
I would say that stigma has impacted me by way of empowerment, because I've never been one to allow someone to keep me down, to put any barriers in my way that I couldn't break past. So really what stigma has caused me to do is to just live out loud with my status. I'm very open, being a Black gay man living with HIV, but I very much focus and function under the U equals U aspect of life as well. So for me, making sure that stigma is reduced around HIV transmission and treatment and, and prevention is really just the key and soul to who I am. So for me as well, I don't want to get emotional, excuse me, but I have a beautiful 5-year-old son who is HIV negative due to U equals U. Undetectable, and I have a partner who is HIV negative, and we have a beautiful 5-year-old son together, and I've been living with HIV now close to 10 years. So I use that story to empower those around me in my trainings, when I travel, when I speak, just to make sure that people know that don't let HIV stigma keep you down. You can still live a normal life. You can still have all the things that you want and be as productive and be as fruitful in community as you can. Because again, being a parent, as a Black gay man living with HIV, I never saw that for myself. And especially after my diagnosis, I just thought that that was completely over for me. And I allowed stigma to do that to me. But to take power back into my own hands, take my treatment into my own hands, and make sure that I was still able to live the life that I wanted to live and have, for me is eliminating the hell out of stigma, and making sure that I can share that story so that others can understand my journey and hopefully be able to apply something that I've gone through to their life and hopefully improve it.
All right, you heard it from our director at the Center to End the Epidemics. ESCALATE is a vehicle to help us. We have the tools that we need. Thank you again to this amazing panel. As I said, they are game changers doing amazing work. These are the people who are going to help us end stigma and the HIV epidemic in the United States. So thank you for your work.
Thank you.